So something interesting happened. Adam Silver, was it Pat McAfee that he was on? I think Adam Silver was on Pat McAfee too. Pat McAfee getting a lot of interviews, y'all.
Getting everybody.
Man, you ain't lying, boy. I know Stephen A. Smith don't like that, but
bad.
big bad. But it was something real interesting. He said they asked him about the LUKA Doncic trade and how the NBA front office was involved when they found out about it. I guess they thought that Adam Silver would be like, this is lopsided. No, this can't go down. So they asked him about that, man, and his answer was very interesting. I'm gonna let y'all hear what he said, and then we'll get into our commentary afterwards.
When do you get a heads up that Luka is getting traded to the Los Angeles Lakers and AD is getting traded to Dallas? And what were your thoughts on it as a whole, Commish?
Yeah, so first, just to clarify, I don't, or the commissioner doesn't have the right to block a trade other than a trade not conforming to our rules. So, okay. and you alluded to David Stern once blocked a trade, but I get how confusing it was to fans, but he was both the commissioner and the acting owner of the New Orleans franchise at the time. And so a trade was recommended to him by the general manager, and he turned down that trade based on what he thought was in the best interest of that franchise.
As an owner, not as the commissioner. He turned down the trade as the owner, not as the commissioner.
Exactly. And by the way, I learned my lesson because in that interim period, when we were running the Los Angeles Clippers, a guy named Dick Parsons came in, and he was the interim governor. And I, of course, had been here when David turned down that trade. And I said, Dick, you're the owner of that team. You will decide what trades to make or not make, not me. So there's absolutely no confusion. But in this situation, with Luka, I learned, the league office learns a little bit ahead of the public, because to the point of leagues approving trades, it's kind of like a closing at a house. Both teams have to be on the phone. The lawyers and the basketball folks at the league office have to make sure that the contracts match, that the team indeed does have the cap room to make the trade, that it complies with our rules. So I learned when they called the trade into the league office. And again, so I don't really have a role in that process other than if there's somehow a dispute as to the mechanism of the trade. In terms of the trade itself, look, it's obvious time will tell. The only place where I feel defensive on behalf of the Dallas Mavericks and new ownership there is there were some suggestions early on that the trade wasn't done for basketball reasons, that somehow new owner didn't want to pay a maximum salary or was focused on building a real estate development or something else. The only thing I can say, and I feel very confident in this, knowing Patrick Dumont, who's the governor of the team, and the people involved, they believed that they were making the best trade on behalf of the Dallas Mavericks. Whether that turns out to be true, again, only time will tell.
So there's a couple of things I want to point out, right? Toward the end, he said that, there's a lot of rumors around why the Mavs made the trade, and it was coming from ownership. Them not wanting to pay that heavy contract that Luka was due out, and some other things. Then you had Nico Harris come out and say he had no regrets about the trade. Despite everyone saying that you don't trade someone that young, that good, like this, right? So you got that piece. I want to hear what y'all think about the trade itself and the fact that it might have came from ownership, and Nico saying he not having no regrets. But then I want to circle back because he mentioned the CP3 trade, and he mentioned that, hey, look, man, despite what everybody think, man, the commissioner, we don't veto trades like that. People got confused about the David Stern CP3 trade. I'm gonna get into that because I want to play for y'all what Jenny Buss said when she was on All the Smoke last year about that trade. And then we get into it. But talk to me about Nico Harris, his role in the trade, the fact that he has no regrets, and the fact that this might have came from ownership to make it happen.
You want me to go first?
I mean, it don't matter.
The way the trade came about, the way the trade was done, the abruptness of it, how everybody thought it was a hoax, because a lot of people were getting hacked on Twitter at the time. So everybody thought Shams had got hacked. Nobody believed. I mean, even I think Mel threw it in the group chat. It was like, Shams got hacked too. They saying Luka got traded. I'm like, yeah, that's definitely like some NBA Centel stuff. There's no way Luka just got traded, like, you know, middle of the night type stuff. And then I went to go check. Shams reported it, and then he came out with a tweet saying, "Nope, I was not hacked." And then ESPN started rolling out. The way that happened, it definitely seems like somebody, and I'm not pointing fingers yet, but somebody got tired of somebody else and made a
That's a
move.
fact.
And it made a move. It just was like, you know what? Push the button, send it. I like it. Deal done. Right? There was no build up to it. There was no, oh, there's talks. Oh, Lakers are interested. Oh, Dallas is trying to do this, that, and the third. And we knew, you know, the trade deadline come up. There's always talks about, oh, because even there was talks about Kevin Durant. Oh, Suns might move Kevin Durant. You know, there was
Correct.
always rumors about, you know, this came out of nowhere. For the way that move was done, that was definitely a up top move. That was all, you know, ownership, maybe even, you know, like, you know, front office, but that's about where it was at. The coaches didn't have a say. Clearly the players didn't have a say. You know what I'm saying? So I think now what caused it, maybe he didn't want to pay the supermax money for a player that kept showing up out of shape. I don't know. That's still up to speculation. It makes a lot of sense because he was still probably going to be due for that money, but we know Mark Cuban wasn't going to make that move. So it seems kind of funny that as soon as Mark Cuban releases majority stake in the team, all of a sudden this crazy move happens.
You know what I like though? I like the way Dallas look now. I like the way they play. I mean, they did have a whole bunch of injuries, so we didn't get to see them full force with AD. You know what I mean? We got to see that one game with AD, Gafford, and Kyrie and Clay all on the floor against the Rockets, but AD went down, and then Gafford went down, and Lively was already down, and then PJ Washington went down, and then Kyrie went down. But in that play-in game, they pretty much had everybody back except Kyrie. You know, they had Lively, they had Gafford, Dinwiddie was there.
And walked them boys down too.
And I like them. They play D. And imagine being able to win with just one superstar, right? Something that they claiming that Jokic should have excuses for, you know, because he ain't got no other all-star. Like AD right now don't have another all-star, right? And they look fine. They playing good basketball, good team basketball. The defense is there. I think what went down with this trade, and the reason why Nico said I ain't got no regrets, is because it's a team that Jason Kidd want to coach. He likes coaching, and you don't have to scheme around one player's defensive deficiencies, and then scheme an entire offense around one player having the ball all the time, and everybody trying to figure it out around him. Man, I think that's very hard to do. Like nobody wants to do that. It's not the best way they play basketball. So I like the trade, and people just got to accept the fact that just because you think somebody dope don't mean somebody else got to stay with that person. Like if like we didn't want Luka. No, I mean, we wanted to do something different, and we didn't want to pay what we would have to pay for Luka and keep doing what we was doing with Luka. The Lakers did. So they made a trade, and they got somebody that fit them. You know, just because you think this person dope don't like if somebody trying to break up with their girlfriend or their boyfriend, you can't be like, oh man, I think she's dope, man. You shouldn't do this. I think that's played out, man. If somebody ain't trying to deal with somebody, they're not trying to deal with them. And the Mavs didn't want to deal with Luka. And I'm tired of every time Luka has a big game, Dallas, y'all dumb. Dude, we didn't want him no more.
Right.
We didn't want him. And that's okay.
They know what they were doing. They not dumb. Like we knew, you know, exactly what we were doing. We knew the decision that they knew the decision that they decided to make. But I think not only maybe it didn't work out, they got tired of his play on the court, like you said, Mel, but maybe it was a culture fit. You know, he could present himself one way to the public and the media and talk his way through. We all know players get this media trainer, so they sound great in front of the camera and to the fans. But maybe behind the scenes, like you guys said, he shows up out of shape every single year. Maybe it's an attitude situation. Like it could be a lot more behind the scenes that we don't know about that may come out later, that they're like, you know what, we just don't. Not only we got to figure out what to do with you on the court, and we gotta you know, Jason Kidd got to be special on the the daggone thing he draws on. I can't think of it
The
right
drawing
now.
board.
Yeah, the drawing board.
clipboard.
The clipboard. Thank you. But now
Yeah.
we gotta deal with your attitude and all this other nonsense behind the scenes. Like, we just don't feel like doing this anymore. LA, they're more Hollywood. They don't mind it. If they take us off your
Exactly.
hands, you know,
Mhm.
take it off your hands. They like the attention, whether it's negative or positive. We just like dollars come in our pocket.
Yeah.
However, which way, we'll figure it out. But and then they went and traded. We got to stop acting like prior to AD getting to LA, he was a superstar. Like, he was a fire
Still
player.
is.
And still is. Like, I'm not when I mean was, but when he was with the Pelicans, I think we forgot about that. You know, we talked about it earlier. He just had to adjust his play to help him fit with LeBron. Now he gets to go and play back to how he would like to play with Kyrie.
Correct.
I think he's a much better fit with Kyrie and those guys in Dallas. So, and that's why we should seeing the AD when he's healthy play how he's played. He's been dominating the few games that he was able to play as long as he was healthy. So I think it's just more than on the court play. I think it's some behind the scenes stuff that we may not be privy, that we may not understand or we may not hear that's going on.
I see a lot of people in the comments saying that, and this was a narrative that was being thrown out when it happened, that this was a terrible move by Dallas and the worst trade in the last however many years of the worst trade in NBA history. But I just want people to take a look from the future standpoint. If you got 6 years, 7 years, 6.5 years out of this guy, you only got one finals trip out of it all. You got a continued attitude problem. You got a conditioning problem. And you've been trying to build around this guy, but it's never been enough. Why would you want to tie yourself down to that for another 4 or 5 years when you can just cut loose now, get something back, and rebuild? And it don't even have to be a complete rebuild. You can still have a chance to be competitive, and you don't have to have that anchor of a supermax contract tying you to this player for the next 4 years, and you're strapped cash wise, and you can't do anything else but pay this man. That's not a terrible move.
Because once you give Luka that money,
you're done.
Look, getting him some help, because you're not going to be. You're probably not going to be able to keep Kyrie. Maybe you might be. Well, Kyrie was still on the contract, so all right, you give Luka that money. You got Luka and Kyrie, but anybody else who came up on their contract, you probably was going to lose. You probably was going to lose PJ Washington. You was going to lose a lot of people, and you wasn't going to be able to sign a lot of free agents once you strap like that. So when you pay that type of supermax to a player, you better be sure that you already got everything in place that's going to keep y'all competitive for the next at least 3 years. Because otherwise I'm not forking up that money, right? And they just didn't. And look, it might be a good thing that they publicly. I mean, because I'm pretty sure Luka was embarrassed. Like, man, how y'all gonna do this to me like this, man? Trade me away like this mid-season, like I ain't nothing. And that might motivate him enough to turn down a honey bun, or to turn down a beer every now and then, or stop smoking the hookah. That might make him focus. Right, so if it does make them focus, y'all got Dallas Mavericks to thank for that, man. So